everybody. Hi, everybody. Hey, welcome out to Crossroads students. On a Thursday night, it's the best night of the week. And for those of us that aren't here at Oakley, on a Sunday night, I want to say hi really quickly to all our friends that are not here in the room. Don't worry, I'm going to get to you in a second, Oakley. I want to say hi to all our friends from Crossroads Dayton, Crossroads students Dayton, all the way down to Lexington, to Florence, East Side, West Side, Mason, and of course, my favorite here at Oakley, guys. Welcome to Crossroads students. Very glad you're here. Hey, we're in week 4 of a series that we're calling Your New Playlist. This whole series is on mindset, your mindset. My job today is I'm going to try and convince you that you have the power to change your mindset. Can we do that? You think I can convince you that you can change your mindset? Okay, let's see if I can do it. But before I do that, I need to tell you about my mindset in high school. And in order for me to do that, we got to fast forward to the end of my high school career, graduation day. You want to see a picture of me on graduation day? This is what I looked like on graduation day, but hold on, there's a black box over me. So here we go. Let's throw a picture up here. These are all of my friends in high school. Yes, I know what you're thinking. All whites. Yes, ton of white friends. Super rural area, Michigan. Listen, there's just a bunch of whiteys around, okay? What else do you notice about this picture? What else do you notice about them? They're decorated. They've got tassels, they've got the robes, and they've got the collars. They're very decorated academics. My best friends actually all graduated in the top 10 of our class. They were very, very, very smart. And then there was me. See if you notice anything about my cap and gown. You didn't, hey, you don't have to laugh that hard, okay? You don't have to laugh that hard. No, look at this. Look at this. They're all decorated academics, and I'm clutching onto that diploma, wondering how I'm going to feed a family on a minimum wage job, okay? I was not the smartest student, but believe it or not, in middle school, I got really, really good grades. My intention was never to end up like that on the end of the line of all my smart friends, because in middle school, I got good grades. Like, I was a really good student. I was smart. I was typically the smartest student in the class. I was a little bit of a teacher's pet, so they kind of like gave me some favoritism. But legitimately, I got good grades. I was smart in middle school, and my parents and my teachers would all kind of gas me up a little bit. They'd be like, "Yo, bro, like, you're pretty smart. Like, you might be a genius. Like, low-key, you might be like the next Jimmy Neutron, maybe the next Neil deGrasse Tyson. You are very smart." So, of course, going into high school, I had the mindset, because people told me I was smart, I had the mindset that I was just going to, like, rule that school with my big brain energy, okay? I was smart, I had that mindset, and I walked into school, and I made the smartest friends, all the smart kids I was friends with, and my mindset was what people were telling me. You're smart, be a smart kid. Freshman year, I crushed, you guys. Like, it was great. Crushed freshman year, aced it, easy for a genius, maybe not for you, but easy for me, because I was a genius. And then something happened sometime after freshman year. It could have been sophomore year, junior year. I don't know exactly when, but something happened. A shift happened for my academic career. And it wasn't super dramatic, but I got my first assignment back that I didn't ace. Okay, not super dramatic. And my parents were still proud of me, and my teachers were still telling me I was smart. But you know what did change? There was this new voice that had not been there before in the back of my head that was very quiet, but it whispered to me, maybe you're not that smart. I don't know. I buried it down. That's what you're supposed to do when you have thoughts like that. You bury it deep, deep down, okay? You never address them. I buried it down, and I just kept going on, and I aced some tests, and I did good. Then all of a sudden, another failed assignment, you guys. And then that voice, a little bit louder this time, hey, you're not that smart, Brody. Then all of a sudden, failed assignments turned into failed classes. That voice again, Brody, you're not that smart. Brody, you're an idiot. Eventually failed classes led to me getting into some trouble, got suspended, got into detentions, and then all of a sudden that voice was just unbearably loud telling me, you are a idiot, you are a failure. You know what shifted in high school for me? My mindset changed. Somewhere along that line in high school, my mindset changed, and it was because I started listening to that voice in the back of my head. At one point, there were voices telling me, you're a really good student, you're smart. All of a sudden, I started listening to this other voice, and my mindset shifted. I never intended to be the non-decorated academic, but there I was because my mindset shifted. And it shifted because I started listening to the wrong voices. I learned something really valuable at the end of high school, and it's that who we listen to determines our mindset. Who you listen to determines your mindset. I listened to the wrong voice. I was listening to that voice inside my head, and it determined my mindset, and my mindset went from I'm a smart student to I'm an idiot. And then my life turned out kind of like what I would have expected an idiot's life to turn out like. My mindset directed my life, and it was changed because I listened to the wrong voice. The voices that you listen to determine your mindset. It determined mine, and then it started to determine my life. The truth is, who you listen to determines your mindset. You know, it's scientifically proven. If you listen to really negative things in your life, your mindset and your mentality, your mental health, they're going to be negative. If you listen to really positive things, your mentality, your mindset, your mental health, they're going to just be better. Listening is like eating. If you eat a terrible diet, you will have a poor physical health report. If you have a poor listening diet, then your mental report will be unhealthy. And guess what? You and me all have a mental report. And I did a little bit of research, and I found our mental report. Do you want to see it? Are you ready to see it? Because I think all of us kind of know what our mentality is. This mentality is leading us to this mental report. Let's see some of these statistics on our generation. You ready? 91% of us are stressed. Are you stressed? Yes. If you don't say yes, you're in the 9%, and I don't believe you. 91% of us are stressed. 54%, so the majority of us are fearful and anxious. Been labeled the least patient generation of all time, and the majority of us are unhappy and we're depressed. That's our health report. Guys, that's not the best news, is it? It's not the best news. But if I had to venture and guess, I think every one of us would go, that's pretty accurate. Is that accurate? Do we feel like our mentality and our mindset is accurately reflected there? Yeah, mine is. Mine is for sure. I think we all have the same mindset because we are listening to the wrong voice. We're listening to the wrong person. If who we listen to affects and determines our mindset, then that mindset right there is being affected by some voice, and that is not a good voice. And today I want to introduce you to that voice. Are you ready to meet him? Can I go off stage? Can I go get him? I'm going to go get him really quick. Here we go. I'm going to bring on this voice. Here we go. Everybody, say hello to our friend, yes, my clothes, much taller than me. Our friend today, we're going to call the Critic. Everybody say the Critic. Okay. The Critic. The Critic is the voice that you and I have been listening to. We've been listening to the wrong voice, and it's been his voice. I don't know if you've ever felt this way before, but when I was researching for this talk, I came across a Reddit post from a few years ago that I think perfectly describes what it's like to hear from the critic. Here we go. Let's read it together. It says, "My negative self-talk is so bad, it's like having an inner bully and critic at all times. If you could hear the things I tell myself, it's like having someone who's overly critical, pessimistic, doesn't fundamentally like me in my head at all times, distorting every situation and interaction so that I feel bad about myself or I imagine the worst. It's really bad, and the worst thing about it is that sometimes it's subliminal talk. I don't even notice it, but it's there under the surface." Has anyone ever run into the critic before? Anyone ever run into that critic? That internal bully? That voice in the back of your head that is just whispering things to you about yourself that make you just hate yourself. This critic has a name. And the Bible gives this critic a name. In the Bible, he's referred to as the deceiver, as the tempter, as Satan, as the father of lies, but today we're going to call him the critic. You know why? Because I think the critic actually fits him really well. If you just think about what critics are, think about food critics, art critics. You can think about movie critics. You can think about this guy. This guy is like my least favorite critic of all time. And then he becomes my favorite character of all time. How can you not love him at the end? Critics, you know what they do? The entire job of a critic is to tear down the work of somebody else without any desire or plans to help improve on the thing that they're destroying. Your inner critic and my inner critic is the exact same way. There is a critic in your head that just wants to tear you down and has no desire to build you back up healthy. Listening is like eating. This guy has been feeding you some really unhealthy things. Those things are called lies. The father of lies, the critic, whispers lies to you that sound like this. Maybe you've heard this one before. You're unlovable. I felt that way. I don't know about you. What about this one? Have you ever felt or heard the critic say that you're unforgivable? How about this next one? You're not enough. The list could go on and on and on, and yet the critic is whispering those words to you all of the time. And you know what they all have in common? They're all his native language. And his native language is lies. Lies. The critic lies to you. And we, unfortunately, we're eating it up. We're eating it up like birthday cake and ice cream. And our health report is really bad. We're eating up his lies, and it's affecting our mentality. The good news is that this critic isn't the only character and the only force that's at work fighting for your mentality. That's the good news. There's another force at work, not just the critic, and he's the mortal enemy of the critic. He's the arch rival. Do you want to meet him? You want to meet him? Okay, let me go get him. Come on. Yes, also my clothes. This guy, his name, this character, this force is, say it with me, God's truth. Go ahead and say that. God's truth. See this guy? He is harnessing and holding on to God's truth. You think he can hold on to this? Let's see if I can get him to hold on to that. Better. Okay. God's truth. If the native language of the critic is lies, God's native language is truth. And those two things cannot coexist. In fact, Jesus calls the critic the father of lies. You know what he says about himself? Jesus says, I am the way, the what? The truth and the life. God's truth is the mortal enemy of the critic. And there's an eternal battle going on in your mind, waging for your mentality. The choice, though, that we have today is, do we have any power to silence the lies of the critic and actually start believing in the truth that God says about you? In fact, there's a story in the Bible where Jesus gives us a great example of what it's like to have the critic constantly lying to you. And he handles it perfectly. Yeah, if you didn't know this, the critic comes for everybody. The critic comes for pastors up on stage with microphones. The critic comes for you, your friends. The critic comes for your parents. And yeah, and Jesus too. Jesus has this moment with the critic in Matthew 4, and he shows us how we can handle the critic. Let's read. Let's see what he says. Matthew 4, 1 through 4. It says that Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted there by the devil. For 40 days and 40 nights he fasted and became hungry. During the time, the devil, or the critic, came and said to him, if you're the Son of God, tell these stones to become loaves of bread. But Jesus said to him, no. What's he say? No. God's truth says, people do not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. He goes on. Then the devil took him to the holy city, Jerusalem, to the highest point of the temple, and said, if you're the Son of God, jump off. For God's truth says, he'll order his angels to protect you, they'll hold you up. But Jesus responded and said, no, God's truth also says, you must not test the Lord your God. And lastly, the devil took him to the peak of a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. He said, I'll give it all to you if you'll just kneel and worship me. And Jesus responds and says, get out of here, Satan. For God's truth says you must not worship the Lord. You must worship the Lord your God and serve him only. Then the devil went away, and angels came and took care of Jesus. Jesus used God's truth to silence the lies of the enemy, to silence the lies of the critic. And you know what happened? The critic fled, and he left. Those lies no longer stuck. The lies that he was trying to feed Jesus to wreck his mentality, to pull Jesus out of the life that God so desperately wanted for him, those plans were foiled and silenced because Jesus knew and stood on the truth of God. So if you want to know how to silence the critic in the back of your head, that critic that's constantly trying to tear you apart, the answer is God's truth. For me, the critic for years and years and years has been telling me that no matter how well I perform, or how much I impress, or how much people will say to my face that they like me, really I'm just a failure. And I'm a fraud, and I'm a fake. You know, I've been terrified my whole life that God's going to take every good thing away from me because the critic has been telling me that I don't deserve anything good. So I live a life that is like void of courage sometimes. I live a life that honestly I think is pathetic at some points. I live a life that I'm embarrassed to even admit, and it's because my mentality is affected by this voice that I keep listening to that is feeding me lies. And sometimes I just wish, like I get so angry because it's so hurtful and it wrecks my mentality and my life and what feels like my future. I just wish I could take like a roll of duct tape. And I wish I could take the critic. I could like wrestle this 6'2" critic down to the ground. I'd throw him on the ground and rip his stupid hat off. And I wish I could take some duct tape and just peel off a piece and just silence his stupid lies. Oh, I'm so sick and tired of what he says to me. I wish I could just shut him up. And I'd pick him back up. I'd stand next to him. And I'd go, what do you have to say now? I wish I could do that sometimes. And you know what? Jesus' story teaches us that I can. I do have the power to silence that critic. The only way, though, I can is with God's truth. God's truth silences the critic. In fact, for you, you might be believing the lies that you will never break your addiction, that this addiction that you're struggling with will be constant and ongoing. The critic has been lying to you that your life is wrecked, it's ruined because you cannot get out from under the bondage of that addiction. When you go to God's truth silences that lie and says, no, you are free. You're free. For some of us, the lies that we've been believing, that we're ugly, that no one could ever love us, we look in the mirror and we just see ourselves and we just go, I don't even like what I see there. I'm ugly. How could anyone ever love me? That lie is silenced when we go to God's truth and we find out that God says that you are his masterpiece. Silencing the lie with the truth of God. Shut up, critic. I'm a masterpiece. For others of us, the lies that we believe about our future, that our future will never amount to anything. In fact, my parents have been telling me for years and years and years that I'm just never going to do anything important. My friends and my teachers just tell me I'm an idiot. I have no future. I might as well just like end it all now. Why keep going? That lie is silenced when we go to the truth of God and we learn that God has plans for you and me to prosper. To prosper. That's the truth. It silences the lie of the critic. God wants me and you to prosper. And then this one is near and dear to me. Because as stupid as it sounds, for a long, long, long time, I had little man syndrome. It's true. It's true. I know I look like 6'8" up on stage right now, but really I'm like 5'6". My whole life I was told I was scrawny, I was weak, and I started believing that maybe God made me weak. God made me, God made my body. If he made me scrawny and frail and skinny, then maybe my character is weak too. Maybe my mind is weak too. Maybe my dreams are just weak dreams. I'll never amount to anything. God made me weak. That lie is silenced when I go to the truth of God and find out that he has made me strong. He's made me strong. I silence the lie of the enemy with the truth of God. Do you know why the enemy lies to you? Do you know why the critic lies to you? He lies to you because he's afraid of you. Look at me. The critic is afraid of you. He is afraid that if you believe in the truth about what God says about you, if you start believing that, if you start walking the walk, if you start living a life that's built on God's truth about you, he's afraid he's going to lose all power over you. And he's right. He will. He's afraid of a generation that has a health report that says 91% of you are hopeful. He's afraid of that. He's afraid of a health report that says the vast majority of you are full of joy and peace and patience and kindness. He is afraid of you. And until you stop believing the lies, until you start using God's truth to silence his lies, guess what? He's going to still be in a job. He's afraid of you. He's afraid of the future that God has for you, and he's going to continue to lie until you never, ever reach that future. It's heartbreaking to me to think that many of us in the room right now may have never actually silenced the lie of the critic. The good news is that today that ends. That ends. In C groups today, you're all going to have a mini roll of duct tape. A mini roll, okay? And on the back of your phone, you're going to rip off a piece of duct tape, put it on the back of your phone, and you're going to write something from God's truth about you that silences a lie that you've been believing for too long. For me, I needed to write down forgiven, because there is an ugly past. And I believe, and have believed for too long, that God could never forgive the things that I've done. And that's held me back from a life full of peace, a life full of joy, a life full of hope. And it's not until I silence that lie with the truth that I am forgiven, it's not until then that I'll ever experience a life of fullness that Jesus really has for me. Today we're going to silence the lies. Are you in? Are you in? Let me pray. God, your truth is a power that you want us to harness. You want us to harness this power and silence the lie of the enemy because he's afraid of us. He wants to convince us of the opposite of what you say about us. So God, I've just prayed today, right now, you would speak very clearly your truth to your kids. And I pray a bold prayer that this generation would no longer be a generation that's marked with an unhealthy health report about their mentality and their minds, but instead would start living free, full of your truth. Silence the lies today, God. In Jesus' name, amen.